Okay, so welcome everyone. My computer speaker isn't working, so somebody just type in a question to confirm that the audio is coming through okay. I'm always concerned about my audio not working and the whole recording not working correctly. Cool, got that confirmed, I can relax. So, welcome to our local government webinar series. Good to see a big crew here again. It's great to do these sessions, get the feedback, get the conversations. We're learning a lot from it, and we're getting guidance on what to show for the next 4 webinars, which we'll come to in a while. So, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Sean Toomey. I'm the Industry Solutions Manager for Bluebeam APAC. My main focus is working with the technical side, presenting solutions, and also gathering feedback. And one of the main feedbacks that we do get is toolsets. How can we use this software more effectively when we don't have our toolset set up for local standards, which is what we'll do today. So I'm based in Sydney, and I've got many years background working in design, GIS, traffic, autos, fun things. So the session is being recorded. If we do experience lag, you can access the recording. We'll send you the link for the session. We'll also show the page, the slide coming up. The agenda in general is same as always. We'll just do mainly a tech presentation. We'll do it at the summary afterwards. And we'll do a few polls first, just so we can get an idea of who we're talking to. And these are very useful for us for a bunch of different reasons. So let me go and launch one of these. So the first thing we're interested in knowing is which version of Revu do you currently use? Okay, so it looks like most people are on Extreme or Standard. And we've got a few who haven't seen it yet, which is good. We like having guys come into the sessions just to get a feel for what the software does. Let me close that poll and share it so you can see what those numbers were. We'll just do one more quick poll, then we'll progress through here. So we'd like to know what's your skill level in Bluebeam. Because we're always unsure of exactly where to gauge these presentations. We do get a mixed crew. What we like to do is show some of the basics and show a few more advanced features as well to keep people occupied and interested. So we've got plenty of regular users, a few advanced, and a few who have opened it a few times. Okay, good. Let me close that poll and share that. Great. So throughout the presentation, we've got people in the background asking questions. We will stay online for a little while afterwards, so we'll stop the recording. But if you want to type in questions, then we're happy to take those and discuss them. And for me, the most important poll is at the very end, where we get feedback for future topics. So you will notice that the next 2 topics that we announced are based completely from the previous feedback. So let's just explain some of this. So I think by now the regular attendees have seen the slide a few times. We all know that Bluebeam is the end-to-end digital workflow solution. These stats are really interesting, so we can see that there's plenty of history, 15 years of evolution, and most of that evolution, I think, has shaped the interface from the software. So as people use it more often, we get more and more questions, and we've got to do more and more development to cater for that. Part of that is the localization side, and you can see we've got 1 million customers plus in more than 130 countries. So our office presence is growing in Australia. We have 5 now, and possibly 1 more joining. So it's good to have a local presence here. And you'll see there's also 27 billion transactions for online collaboration with Studio. That's something we want to get back to in more detail soon. Just bear that in mind. We'll probably get to it more next week. In terms of local government, we're learning more and more from the feedback. What I'm getting more and more feedback on is that work as executed is one of the most important areas. So all these different departments use PDF to different levels, and PDF being an open format, we can do more and more with them. We can easily just do generic topics on each of these areas for the rest of the year quite happily, but we're really keen to get some feedback from this. So in terms of the schedule, the first 3 sessions have been done on planning. We did roads drainage markup, and we did drawing management and checks. In each of those sessions, we mentioned toolsets. You mentioned toolsets in every session that you do. So they're relevant to absolutely everything. So by way of rounding off the first half of our sequence, we wanted to include this because it's just a kind of a Swiss Army knife that's used for everything. In terms of the next two webcasts, we've got work as executed and development approvals. That's based directly from the feedback. I expected development approvals. I didn't know that the as constructed would be such a big thing. So I've gotten a lot of information on that. Keen to get more, so don't be shy on sending more back to us. We're always keen to get that information. So in terms of this session, we're talking about tool sets and tool chests and everything else. So we're going to build a bunch of these. We'll do a bunch of these graphical traffic signs because they stand out so much. It's not going to be a training session. We're showing the concepts. I know we've got a mixed audience, so most people are regular users, so we won't go too much into the interface. We'll mention parts of it as we go through the session. We have previous webcasts on this, and there's a whole library of existing webcasts on our website that you can look at to get more information on the basics. So if you need any of those, let us know. Just type in a question and somebody will direct you to the right place. So we discussed tool sets. As we make them, we're going to add data. So we will add subjects to each of the tools we create, so we can do more with the schedules and Excel exporting. We will talk a little bit about doing scaling, because making a bunch of traffic signs in this example that work for a certain scale drawing, then having to manually resize them on each other drawing is a little bit painful. So we'll explain that. And the last thing we'll touch on very briefly is profiles. So what you see when we open up Revu in a second is that there's a lot of information on the screen. Now, I've put it all there to begin with, just so we can see it all. In reality, you would make individual profiles with smaller subsections of those tool sets so that you don't get too much information on the screen at one time. So we'll go through those quickly. Let me just jump into the software. Okay, so let's have a look at the data set. It's the same roads, drainage, markup, reconstruction that we've been doing for the last few weeks. The first drawing is the standard version we've had before with the plan view on top and the two long sections at the bottom. So what we're going to do with this is do a bit of quantification of the assets. So these pipes along here where I'm holding the mouse right now, we want to work out how many of each diameter of pipe and what length and what quantity are in this sheet. And we're going to use this pipes QTO tool set on the left-hand side. We will then show how we created that, how easy it is, and how it can be shared. We've also got the same drawing in a larger scale, just showing the plan view. So we'll use that to show the different scaling options. Also, we'll put the traffic signs in here because we've got more space to move around with those. The traffic signs in general, we're going to make those from this sheet. So this is just a file that was produced from CAD with full of these traffic signs. All we're going to do is copy them and paste them into our tool chests. A lot of people have been asking where we've gotten these signs. Honestly, if you haven't spoken to the guys in your CAD department, they will have all these signs. They will have block libraries of all these and a lot more. And all they have to do is put them into a drawing and make a print the PDF and give it to you. That's the hard part. Once you've got that done, doing what we're going to do in this webcast is a very, very simple process. So we picked traffic signs because they're nice and graphical and they stand out. It can be anything else. It can be catch pits. It can be any markup that you do. We've had quite a few inquiries about landscaping, so we can do something on those as well. Then we will repeat that process with the Austroads pavement markings. The scale is more important here. So the various arrows are meant to be various dimensions. We can see our straight ahead arrows are meant to be 6 meters. We verified that with the Austroads Standards, which we've got here as well. So that drawing has been scaled as well, and we will get into that in a little bit of detail when we get to it. So in general, you could say that we're doing two different types of tool sets. One is the very graphical signs here, which will have data behind them. We will have subjects and we will do some analysis of those. But in general, they're an aesthetic view. The other is the asset quantification here. So let's just start with that one. we'll do a few measurement markups. Now, for those who haven't seen a review properly before, they haven't seen this data set from previous sessions, these viewports have been set to the correct scales. So when I click on them, they highlight, and you can see the horizontal and vertical scales have been set here. So I'm going to skip that for this webcast. We've covered it in a lot of detail in the previous one. If you need that recording, let us know. We'll direct you to it. I don't want to get too bogged down in that area because we got quite a lot to get through. Also, what we're talking about here fundamentally is measurements. So tools, measure, length is mainly what we're doing. We've modified it slightly to add extra information, but if you haven't seen that before, that's one of the most common markups that we do. So let's go through the process here. If I zoom in, I can see the diameter of each of these pipes. So initially I've got a 600 mil pipe. So when I press my 600 mil markup and measure this, as well as giving the length, it's got a subject of DN600, which is a classification of that pipe. So I can keep going here and we'll see what we get from this. The next one is a 750. Next one is also a 750. And the last one is an 825. So first of all, it's more informative. It gives us a confirmation that we've verified the pipe size as well as the length. Also, what I can do here is go up to my tool set and create legend. So when I make that legend, it quantifies the length of each pipe for me. So without doing any real extra work, I've just done the same measurements as before. I've now got information on this summary table. As with everything in the software, I can select this, go to my properties toolbar and change around the aesthetics. I won't do too much of it. I'll just make the title bold, make it bigger. On the columns, if I wanted to add extra information, I could add a whole bunch of more data if I needed. In this case, all I want is the length of the pipe and the classification. Sorry, the classification. So I'll do a small bit of work on the line work. I'll change that from red to say gray, and we'll make it horizontal. So this is our summary of our pipe. So in terms of getting some quantities on the assets on a small drawing, these tool sets make it a really quick process. They're actually faster than going to the tools pull down menu, so it's more productive to start off with, but you're also getting more information, so you can then go and check and get your exports into Excel happening as well. So what I mean by checking is that because I got a blue marker on each pipe, I can see that I've forgotten to do one over here on the right hand side. So this is a 375 pipe. Now it's important to watch the legend table here. So we don't have 375 in there at the moment. When I add it, it will update straight away because it's actually a dynamic version. So when I press enter, we can see that we now have a 375 pipe in my table as well. So by checking that we've got those blue markups on each pipe, we've got confidence that we don't need to worry about the risk of having missed one, but it's a very, very simple thing to do, especially with multiple sheets. This example is very simple. It's only one sheet. Next week, we're doing we're doing work as executed. We've got a far more complex data set that we'll do a lot more work with. What we're focusing on here is the actual tool sets, so I don't want to get too involved in intense data sets. So the important points to mention are that it's quick, and it's very, very dynamic and very, very, it gives you a high level of confidence that you're doing the right job. As well as displaying the information on the drawing, I can also look at the individual markups here. What have I done? Sorry, I got resized too low. I can look at my individual markups. I can click each of these and zoom to them individually, or I can go up here and go to my CSV and export to Excel. We'll do a little bit of this towards the end if we got time. We'll do a lot of it next week. It's basically the exact same information, either in summary format or in individual pipes, depending on what we need. We've had a few discussions with people on the exact format that the Excel exports need to be in to sync in a master spreadsheet. So that's a more in-depth discussion that we will happily get involved in. Let's see. That covers the basis of that. So what we're seeing here is how that tool set works. The question then is, okay, how did I create that tool set? How did that happen? So all you do is go to Tools, Measure, and make a standard markup. So I'll do a length from here to here. And what we always do here is select that markup and change the aesthetics. So I'm not too concerned about the colors for this example. I'll just pick a few shades of blue. More importantly, we go up to the subject section on our property toolbar and we change the information here. So we had pipe 600 and the name of it was DN 600. That's how easy it is to make that markup. What we've done in the past is we have right-clicked and we have added these to the tool chest and put them onto My Tools. What we haven't done yet on the webcast is built a brand new empty container. So it's a very, very easy process. Let's just go to Tools, Manage Toolsets. I'll press Add. I'll call this one Webcast. When I press OK, it's going to save that file somewhere. So I'll press OK for that. I have now got brand new tool chest entry in my area. So I can select this, right click, add the tool chest. I can now add it to my webcast tool set. So if I erase that markup from here, if I add it by default, it's going to preserve the same length. I can double click it, of course, and put it into drawing mode. And now when I measure from A to B, it's the same information with that classification. So all I've done on the previous version is repeat that process. And the way I would do that is just copy this, I'll hold Control and drag it over here. On the 750 area, I will select my Properties toolbar subject section and just change these to 750, because the markup itself is not complicated. All we need is to have the correct subject and label on it. Now from this editing function, I can add to the tool chest right here. I can press Add Tool Chest, click Webcast, and build these up. So it doesn't take long to do. And once it's been done, if you want to share that around, all you do is click here and export. That exports to a file that can be emailed to anybody. So on this session, we're not suggesting that everybody who has Revu should go and do all this. Really, you get a few people who are keen to do it for the office, and then they share it around. It can be added to by everybody else. We will do a session at some stage on how you manage all these individual users at the same time. But in terms of the concept of how you create them, whenever you open the software, you see all these tool sets and you think that maybe it's a very difficult, specialized process. All you got to do is try it once, see how easy it is, and then you want to just do more of them. The only other difference between the one I just created and the previous one is that I switched it from symbol view to detail view. The reason for that is that the markups are all the same. They're all measurements, so we can't distinguish from the actual icon. The subject is what tells us here that it's a 600 or a 750, etc. So to build up this for entire pipe libraries, you can nearly do it on the fly during a job. As long as you're diligent to add them to the correct tool set, you will end up with a very, very complete library. So that is the I don't know, that's the basics of doing a very, very simple asset quantification. You can see how fast it is. It's very, very quick, very, very dynamic. So you can achieve quite a lot with very little effort. And then you can share this around. It gets even more powerful when you got more people in the organization using the same tool set. Then you can do takeoffs and spreadsheets based off multiple users. You can get right into proper predictability and analysis. So leave us know if you need more information on that one. We can do a lot more with it. Let's just get into the fun graphical stuff, because that's what most people have said they wanted to see in this presentation. So I've done a few of these already. Let me just erase them here. Right. And we spoke earlier about where you get these files from. Some of these are on the web in open source formats. That's where we got some of these from. they're all pretty standard and they extend across all kinds of areas of engineering. So all you have to do to make a few of these, let's go and make some of these speed signs. So we go to Edit and click on Snapshot. So what Snapshot lets us do is select an area of interest. So I'll put a window around this 50-kilometer speed zone. It's now copied that to the clipboard. When I paste with Control V, it will put that into my session for me. So what I have now is an item I can add to my toolset. So let me do it what I would call incorrectly first of all. Let me right click, add to tool chest and add that to webcast. That's come in here, but it's called snapshot. Now it'll work fine. I can take it, I can insert it. So graphically it'll be great, but I won't be able to make those legend tables and I won't be able to export to Excel with enough information. So what I recommend, let me just erase that markup from my tool set first of all. I'll right click and select delete. What I recommend is typing in the information as you do it. And since you're doing it once and you want to use it many, many times afterwards, I think it's worth being a little bit pedantic about it. So what I like to do is have my official names here. I've got them in a spreadsheet on the right-hand side, which you should be able to see now. So for example, that 50-kilometer speed limit, the official SKU for that one is R4-1. So R for regulation signs, 4-1 is the name for it. I would copy that to my clipboard. So let me go, and when you go to the Edit pull-down menu, there's a shortcut key here with G written on it. So I'll just, first of all, I'll do it the longer way. I will select here from the pull-down menu. I will select my 60K zone, and I will paste that back in here. Now what I'll do here, before adding it to my tool chest, I will copy to my clipboard from the Excel spreadsheet, the official name, copy, and on my properties toolbar, I will change that from snapshot to the correct name and add the tool chest, add this to webcast again. So it becomes a very, very simple process. The more organized your file is in terms of the markups you're creating, the more streamlined you will be. But making these is not difficult as long as you've got the information to begin with. I'll just do one more. I'll do this pedestrian crossing. This time I'll press G, because as you do more of them, you don't want to go to the pull down menu each time. Copy that to clipboard, paste, and this one is called R3-1 pedestrian crossing. When I select this, I won't worry about the appearance section. I'll just go to my subject and paste this for pedestrian crossing, add to tool chest webcast. So doing these, it's a rinse and repeat process. It will, depending on how many you have, it might take you a few hours to get done. It will save you huge amounts of time going forward. And it's not necessarily difficult, it's just more time consuming and just staying focused and being diligent. So that is how easy it is to make these tool sets. If I go, I'll maximize my screen again here. If I go and look at my my plan view of all this, I can start inserting these straight away. So I work from this webcast tool set initially. So I want to insert my my pedestrian crossing area here. I want to insert that it's going to be a 60K speed limit here. Spin that around. I've got a lot more up here. This is basically that entire previous sheet put into a tool set. In reality, I wouldn't put them all in one tool set. It becomes a bit awkward to navigate. I'll probably split them up. But for this illustration, we've just put them all in here. So if I press the keep left, these all work very, very intuitively. We've got a school zone here. So I think we showed some of this in a previous session. We've got the two versions of this school zone and the end of school zone. And again, depending on how you want to do these, you can rotate them. We've got a whole bunch of parking symbols. So I will make a, let's see, make this a 2-hour car park. Make this place here also a 2-hour car spot. I'm not spending too much attention on getting the angles correct. I think you guys know how that works already. I'll make here a 5-minute zone. I'll put this is a towing area sign here as well. So again, once you've got the tool set up, using them is not that complicated. It's a very, very intuitive process. I could keep going on those. More importantly, after doing this, I can also go and create a legend for those, same as previous. So I'll click on create new legend, put it up here. Now in this case, what it's doing is it's counting each of these signs for us. So when we link this to Excel, we can then go and add costs. So we could add costs inside here as well, but I prefer to do it in Excel because then more people get access to it. In terms of the aesthetics of this table, I don't necessarily need the count written down here as a unit, and I also want the symbols to be a little bit larger. So I'll go to my columns and click edit and untick unit. That's more tidy. In terms of the symbols, I've got a spinner up here where I'm holding my mouse right now. I can work that and push it up and just make those symbols as big as I feel like. In terms of the fonts, that's the same as usual. I'll make it bold, I'll make it a bit bigger, etc., etc. I'll also put in some line work. So I'll give the line work some thickness, make it gray. And you got some options for which areas are shown. In this case, I'll go with the vertical option. So it gives a nice tidy view of what we got. So exact same as previous. If I go and add more signs, so let's look here, we got the towaway area. Let's make the area just below this also a towaway area. So when I click on here, the symbol comes in and the towaway area number changes from 1 to 2. So you've got complete confidence that your quantification of your markups is accurate. You don't need to worry that, hang on, I made a change here and I forgot to export my table. It is right there in front of you the whole time. One thing that we've been asked about quite a lot on these is if you wanted to change the colors. So this pedestrian walking icon here is a very bright green. If you wanted to make that more subtle, you can select and right click and you get a bunch of options, one of which is change colors. So when I press change colors, I will change the green to white and I will change the black to gray. So what I now have is a more subtle version of the exact same sign. Depending on what you're doing, that may be more relevant. I could then go and right click that and add that to my tool chest for future reference as well, of course. An important point to notice is that that changes up here on my table. If I add a second one here, that's still green, it'll be classified in the same place. I won't end up with double entries because they have the same description. So you'll see that I get the description with the skew and the quantity too, so we don't need to worry about those little discrepancies. So those are a bunch of regulatory signs. We got a bunch of other ones. Let's go for some warning signs here. So we got a school zone, so we put in a school bus here. We probably don't have kangaroos, but I'm going to put them in anyway because I got a message from some guys from the US who are watching this webcast, and they told me they wanted some classic Australian signs. And I just put in airport symbol here as well, even though it's not very relevant. Now those don't show up on my regulatory signs legend because these are warning signs. And if I look at the skews on these, instead of bracket, sorry, I picked the wrong one. Instead of bracket or, they got bracket W. So it's a different skew completely for each one. So I can go and make a separate table for these and put that over here. And instead of going to the trouble of changing all those aesthetics, I can click on my first table, right click and select format painter. And like most software does, I can format the painting across to this table here and end up with a very professional looking output. So that's how quick it can be to document up a sheet with all the relevant signs, not just signs. I picked signs here. These could be catch pits. These could be anything you want. And as you do it, you're getting obviously productivity. You're getting verification that you're correct from the tables. You have the option to drill into it in more detail by clicking on your markups list. We could also build a complete legend of all the symbols. I'm doing it by category here because it's one of the benefits of using tool sets that are set up for the specific jobs you've got in hand. So that's a quick taste of that. It's a simple process to do and very, very effective. One thing I have to point out is that this sheet here, as you can see, is at 1:100. And the sheet that I used to create the signs is also at 1:100. Let me just zoom in here, and you'll see we're also at 1:100 here. So very, very conveniently, all the signs work to the correct scale. The reality is you would have drawings in different scales. So if we go back to our original plan, the plan view up here is at 1:200. So if I wanted to put some more markups around this area, if I do it without turning on scaling, so let me go here. So this is my scaling option here at the top, the little triangle with the box around it. If I leave that turned off, I'll actually go over to the same area. If I put in my keep left sign here, it's going to be way too big. It'll be literally twice as big as it should be. So I'll put that across to one side so you can see. If I turn this on, now when I click on it, it'll be the correct size. So it's a very, very simple process to enable that. When you hear about creating tool sets and enabling scaling parameters, it sounds like a very, very advanced hacking type feature. All you have to do is when you create the signs from your original drawing, note the scale that they're at. So they're at 1:100. You go up here to the tool set that you created, click on the wheel icon and select set scale. So what I'm doing here is just telling Revu that the scale for this is going to be 1:100. I picked it already, so it shows up straight away. Once that's done, I press apply. Now when I insert my tools into the new drawing, it will read the scale of that drawing and scale appropriately. Interestingly, the long sections here are obviously vertically exaggerated. So if I go and click one of these, let's go for turn left again, or keep left. So when I hold it over the plan view, it behaves correctly. When I hold it here, it becomes exaggerated. So we've had some feedback that people want to see things like make a template of various pipe grades so they can do visual checks on if we adhere to standards. That will work to different vertical scales. So we'll probably come back to that. It's an idea that we hadn't thought about before. So I'll press escape from that one. So I think we can see how easy it is to create these and how effective they are and how much they can be expanded with very, very little effort. The pavement markings work in the exact same way. We've done them here already. So let me just open up, where have I put this pavement? Oh, here we go. So we've always done it the exact same process. You press the G button to select, Control V to paste, add the correct name, and add them to the tool set. This one's a good way of illustrating how well the scales work, because this drawing is at 1:50. So it's completely different to both of our other two drawings. So if I go to my first one here, and I'll add a very, very obvious, let's put a straight arrow, that comes in at the correct scale. That one is at 1:100. When I go over to my 1:200 drawing and press the same markup, it also comes in at the correct scale. So it's doing exactly what it needs to do in a really effortless way. So first of all, you're productive, of course, but also you're not getting frustrated from having to manually rescale each time. So if I turn this off, it's not the end of the world. When I insert it, it'll be way too big. All I got to do is pick it and resize it manually. That's okay for one or two. It won't be as accurate as it should be, but if I got to do that for a whole bunch of them, it'll be quite frustrating after a while. Also, on this version, we did verify that the length is supposed to be 6 meters, and we've scaled that and verified the length, so that as we're doing it, we're quite confident that we're getting the correct proportions. So that gives us a taste of the two different kinds of markups. Well, I mean, I'm calling them two different kinds. We're seeing the quantification measurements, and then pasting in different sign types and different marking types, different everythings. You will see, of course, that my interface here on the left is quite messy. I've got way too much on the screen at one time. What I would do normally is not have that many. I would go to my profiles. Now, if you haven't seen profiles before, again, it's something which sounds very complex, but it's actually very, very easy. So when I go review profiles, I'm currently under a profile called road signs all. So if I switch to say roads assets, that will turn a bunch of these off, and I have my QTO, I have my general measurements, I have my areas planning from a previous webcast. It's a nice tidy interface. If I do it again, I go to review profiles and select say roads traffic. What I have here are subsets of my previous. So instead of all of my regulatory signs, I have just the speed versions or just the parking version. So it means it's easier to find what I want. To turn these on and off, you go to the toolsets pull down and select what you need. So let's just make a few changes here. And I'll turn on just say general measurements and my tools. Actually, I'll also turn on, where's my webcast? Did I save that? Okay, I can't see that, but anyway, I'll turn on what I need here. I'll go to review, profile, and save, I'll say, sorry, manage profiles. I'll make a brand new one. I'll call this webcast. Press OK, and press OK. So now, when I switch between my, say, roads traffic, I can go back to my previous one that I just made called webcast. Actually, I think the reason that didn't show up is that I didn't save it. So if I switch back into this one, I forgot which one I created on. But we'll come back to that. So with those, you can easily tick on the boxes that we mentioned in the last PowerPoint. You can create markups, add them to your tool sets easily, and have the subjects and attributes coming in so you can do all your checks and exports to Excel. The most important thing is how easy it is to go and take an existing drawing full of rich markups that are very well done, take those and add them to your tool sets, and then taking those and exporting them to a file and sharing with the whole group. That's the whole key. So there'll be somebody in your group who will be keen to do this. All they need is to be given some time, given some resources. When they build it up, it can be shared around. So let me just check my notes to see what I've forgotten to show. Let's see, measurements to be done. I mentioned landscaping. Oh yeah, one point is I'm happy to share that one I've just made, the webcast tool set, with just a few random ones just to get you started. If anybody would like a copy of that, just send me a message or just type in a question saying, please send me. I'll make it a bit more tidy than it currently is. Might add a few kangaroos. And then my view is that if you have that, it will get you started. All you got to do is double click it. It will make a new tool set for you. You can add to that and get a feel for how it works. So even if you don't plan on doing it, there's no harm in knowing how easy it is. So we're just in time to get back in and finish this up. Let me go back into PowerPoint. So we've done what we said. We've shown a bunch of tool sets. We've added data to them. We have done the scaling, which is nowhere near as confusing as I thought it would be. It's a much more simple process. And we've touched on profiles. I think the profiles might have been a bit rushed at the end. I was running a bit short in time, but they're all very simple processes. What I find is that once you start one of them, once you build the tool sets, the data is the next obvious step. And then once you got those working, of course, you must scale it. And then once you get proficient and build so many, you have to learn profiles so you can manage them more effectively. So they kind of work organically together on a learning process. Now, we mentioned earlier that next week we're going to do a more detailed version of work as executed. We've had a bunch of very interesting feedback from people about how important work as X is, and especially this time of the year when you have to get everything that has been done quantified for the end of financial year. We can do a lot with it, and I don't know that people have seen the full abilities that we have. So we've seen a taste of it here. We can do a more extended version of that, not just on pipes. We can do curb and gutter, we can do footpath, we can do everything that needs to be done. That can be exported to Excel. Actually, I didn't get a chance to show, there's one thing here. Let me quickly build it up. On those signs that we did, when you export to Excel, you can do pivot tables that will categorize them into their various areas. So depending on exactly which format you need for your master spreadsheet, we can adapt to that. We can also use the quantity link function on Revu Extreme to literally put the quantities directly into your major sheet. So we'll get into that next week. As an extension of that, which might be a few weeks afterwards, we wanted to show the studio collaboration. On that version, what we'll have is a bunch of guys doing the markups on the same area at the same time. So one person is doing the pipes, somebody else is doing curb and gutter. As one person finds something that's relevant to somebody else, they can highlight it, right click, and assign it to them. So it gets very, very interactive. I'm not sure that everyone has seen exactly how relevant that is, so we'll get to that one. The page here in the bottom right is our downloads page where you can watch any webinars on demand. So if you haven't got that already, let us know. We'll happily send you a link. The last thing we want to do, is the most important one for me, is to get some feedback on what our future webinars should be. So some of these, I should have updated actually. I should have removed the ones that we've already got locked in. If the one that you want to see isn't there, please type it in. Don't be limited by what we've written down, and bear in mind that as constructed, it's already going to be done. So very cool. We've got a few mentions of paperless office. I'm hearing more and more about that as well. Cool. Yeah, I'll be keen to have a chat with some people about that. The online collaboration with the studio. Yeah, we've got a few votes for that one happening as well, which is good. The data dashboards is basically an extension of everything, where a whole bunch of people are all using Revu together. We collect all the information and present it into either a big spreadsheet or Power BI or both, but we're happy to do all of those. So let me close this and share it. So the reason that development approvals is not being marked, that people have seen that we're doing it next week. Every other webcast we've done, that's been very highly mentioned. So ASCON is already mentioned, so good. And again, don't be limited by what I put up here. Tell us what else you have to get in these sessions. So let me hide that, and we will close on that topic. Thank you very much for your attention. I'll press pause on the recording, but we will stay online for a while to answer some questions. So please type in any interesting areas that you have. So we've got one question here saying, does the scale work only with viewports? No, you can set the scale for the entire sheet, and then it'll work as per normal with that. I was just using the viewports to illustrate. Okay, we've got a few people asking for the toolset. That's good. I'll happily send you those. We've got a few guys asking for the links to the past webinars. Oh, we've got a good question here. Can you add a leader to the snapshot? I don't know that you can. I'll look at that and verify. I wondered the same thing myself, but didn't have a chance to look. Can you change the order of the columns in the tool chest? That's a very good question. I don't know. I'll find out. So both of those questions are from the same person. I'll look into those and email you back. Great. Okay, so look, thanks again for your time, everybody. We look forward to doing the next one. The next, well, they're all interesting. The next two are most interesting to me because they're based off direct feedback from you guys. So yeah, then the last two are still up for grabs. So yeah, leave us know what you care about. Thanks, guys, and we'll see you soon.